let's get started. Okay, welcome today to Dr. Alexander Schmidt. He's a distinguished European scholar. He was born in Germany, but he is in Amsterdam and a professor of technological innovation at the Hotelschool in The Hague, which is the Netherlands. With a rich academic background, including a PhD from VU University in Amsterdam, Dr. Schmidt specializes in disruptive business models like AI and technological innovations within the hospitality industry. His positions at various universities across Europe have been marked by significant contributions, particularly in understanding the intersection of digital technologies like robotics, artificial intelligence, and immersive technologies within business model innovation. So his research is recognized for its practical applicability. It offers management tools tailored for navigating the challenge of continual hospitality industry disruption, which I love. He's an advocate of cross-industry collaboration, and Dr. Schmidt's work explores the transformative impact of digital technologies propelled by market players outside traditional industry boundaries. Dr. Schmidt identifies as an insightful innovation enthusiast, tirelessly pushing the boundaries of possibility. His interactions with students, founders, and seasoned managers have sharpened his skills in delivering personalized education and training formats. His passion for innovation and entrepreneurship has inspired many innovation makers. And with that, Dr. Schmidt, it is all yours. I'm going to stop sharing and you may take over the share.
Wow, thanks a lot, Frank, for the warm welcome and the nice introduction.
Hey, Kristen, Larry Birnbaum, how are you?
Hey, Larry, you're on.
Doing well, thanks. Sorry, I've been difficult to catch.
I got it. Thank you. Go ahead, Dr. Schmidt.
All right, there. I thought there's some private conversations ongoing. All right. Let me see if I can pull up the screen and the slides.
And we can see that. Great.
Yeah. All right. Excellent. Yeah. Perfect. Good. Welcome, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you online today and to talk a little bit about the studies that we did in regards to artificial intelligence and also the future of artificial intelligence when it comes to hospitality and tourism, specifically accommodation businesses. Indeed, what we will cover is rethinking hospitality, artificial intelligence, how we move from operational tools to strategic advisors. What that means, I will share with you in a moment. Just a very quick overview or snapshot, so to say, about who I am. Indeed, I'm a professor of technology innovation at Hotelschool The Hague, currently in Amsterdam, sunny weather. Very proud to be citizen of this city. It's one of the most beautiful cities I've lived in. PhD in disruptive innovation. So I really focus on business models, new startups, new entrants that are able to reconfigure the way of how value is created across industries and who are able to basically challenge market logics that existed for years. So think about the Airbnbs, the Spotifys, nowadays, of course, the ChatGPTs, OpenAIs, etc. So not only looking at the technology, but really looking at, okay, how is the entire business model configured, reconfigured to basically enable these industry changes. I've done this for like 15 years and counting. And indeed, on top of being a professor at Hotelschool The Hague, I'm also advising boards, startups, and also policymakers recently in developing strategies, vision documents on a regional but also national level when it comes to digital hospitality and tourism. I don't want to spoil too much, but just to give you an idea of what you can and hopefully will take away from, say, the next 30, 45 minutes or so. I want to basically cover four things. It's not so much, but four things, four chapters that I want to cover. What is artificial intelligence beyond the now? So what is happening now, but how is AI evolving also in the future? Why is that is high? Why do we have special interest groups like this? Why do we talk about artificial intelligence almost on a minute basis? Current AI transformations, you know that much better than me when it comes to practical implementations and really well, the effects when AI is hitting the ground, but just give a quick snapshot into what is currently happening. And then the majority of my talk will focus on future transformations. We did a strategic outlook study that I will share with you afterwards, but I will just give you basically a glimpse into the key insights and the key findings of this study dealing with future transformations. What is artificial intelligence? Well, that's very difficult, of course, and dangerous, so to say, to ask when it comes to a special interest group and with all the experts in the room. But the important thing is, the important finding or position that I want to share with you is when you look at these definitions here, that everything that we will talk about and that is happening right now in the industry is related to how we call it artificial narrow intelligence. Okay, so that's the AI we use today. It basically is a set of AI tools that excel at specific tasks. And you know that playing chess, recognizing faces, forecasting hotel occupancy, very specific tasks where we can plug in an AI solution, an AI tool, which is then often better than humans in performing this very specific task. So we're talking about a very narrow definition and application of the technology. Future states of this technology is basically when you go up the ladder here, or when you go to the outer layers of the model, is artificial general intelligence. And there's a lot of discussion happening now with an observatory installed at the UN, etc., because that is a hypothetical future system, as we call it, with human-like cognitive flexibility. Okay, so that is a system that can learn and solve problems in any environment, not specific to any context like hospitality or accommodations, but across contexts, across industries, across application scenarios. And there's also this discussion that then AI becomes basically an entity and no longer a tool. Experts debate whether this scenario, whether this future will arrive within the next couple of years or decades. That's the future that will potentially wait for us. And then if you go to the most outer layer, artificial superintelligence, so far that's only a hypothetical, theoretical state where machine intelligence far surpasses human cognitive abilities. Okay, that is a state where the machines basically will be out of human control. Okay, and the skills of these machines, they range really from creativity to social skills. That is a state where we can no longer control what artificial intelligence is doing as humans. So just to locate again, what we will talk about today is mainly related to artificial narrow intelligence, but there is a tremendous spectrum of opportunities and also risks when it comes to how the technology will further develop. Why the hype? Why do we have these special interest groups like this? Why do we have conferences fully focused on artificial intelligence? Why is the news full of artificial intelligence updates? That's a big question, because when you look back, and probably you know that, but the technology itself and the research and projects related to artificial intelligence, they already exist for 70 years. So in 1956, there was this Dartmouth conference where a number of mainly white old men started the research proposal on, okay, we want to investigate the potentials and futures of artificial intelligence. So it's definitely nothing new that we talk about. And when we look at, say, leading technology reports, I just pulled up one here from the World Economic Forum. There are so many technologies that have huge opportunities and potentials in healthcare, in say climate-related applications like very efficient batteries, as I said, healthcare breakthroughs, etc. The question is why we don't have so much traction on those promising technologies, but a lot of traction on artificial intelligence. So be very critical. And just a couple of say arguments why that is the case, why we have this hype is when you look at financial resource allocation, I just have numbers here from the Big Four. It's huge when it comes to investments into artificial intelligence. So the financial resource allocation for this specific technology is surpassing basically all other technological developments in other spectrums. I just for comparison, I just compare it to the Dutch hospitality and tourism GDP. So only the Big Four invest more than 3 times the GDP when it comes to the GDP contribution of hospitality and tourism in the Netherlands. So it's huge, and it's only expected to exponentially grow further. A second reason why there is this massive hype around artificial intelligence is that it is disruptive. If you look at ChatGPT, I just pulled up a couple of criteria here. It's cheap or it's free, even if you go for the free version. So it's accessible to everyone. Not only experts can experiment and test the effects of this particular technology for like advanced battery or advanced healthcare solutions or technologies. That's not the case. So it's really accessible to everyone. And it is underperforming. That's also a key characteristic of disruptive innovation. So when you look at the freely accessible LLMs, they're basically underperforming compared to really like the high-end supercomputers and models that are only reserved for experts. And that basically altogether, so the investments and the disruptive effect, and you know that I won't tell you anything new, led to this ChatGPT effect, where only in 2 months we had more than 100 million users. But that really shows that the technology is really diffusing super fast into the societies and into a broad usage of the technology. And that is why there is, from our understanding, why there is this hype in terms of discussing impact of this technology. How AI is currently transforming, I won't give you too much depth into theoretical discussions, but I'll try to make it, so to say, easily digestible. We did a couple of reviews on, okay, what are the discussions, both in industry, but also in academia when it comes to what impact of artificial intelligence and future directions. And we could basically identify 4, say, debates and cluster the conversation. So the first one is when you go top right, it's all about the evolution from automation to empathy. So in the early years of ChatGPT and AI agents, AI assistants, and to a large extent, we are still there. It's all about automating existing processes, existing tasks, etc. So it's kind of very mechanical how AI is applied and discussed. But we see a trend that more and more social, emotional intelligence, empathy, skills, considerations are being taken into, or being pulled into the conversation. So there's this huge shift from automation to empathy. We also see, and that goes hand in hand with the efficiency experience engine. So yet still today, there's the majority of the discussion and AI implementations focus on efficiency gains, whereas there is a tendency that in the future we will also more and more consider the impact of AI on experiences. We'll talk about workforce transformation. So how much do we displace? How much do we augment human work when it comes to integrating AI? And then the whole discussion around ethics, what is irreplaceable in terms of human work? That's basically what's happening and how we cluster the conversations. We do a lot of studies, and if you're interested, you can scan the QR code here. But what we try in a series for a trade journal, a Dutch trade journal, is that we take key scientific studies. We basically translate the findings for hotel and hospitality professionals, so that you don't have to go through the tedious statistics and academic analysis, but that you can basically really just read the key insights and get like really the fresh knowledge out of the academic world and discuss what it means for your daily work in practice. So we're really trying to connect science with the hotel reality out in the industry. tulip season just started in the Netherlands. So if you would come over to Amsterdam, you would see fields are now getting more and more colorful. But when we look into AI adoption, and I would be very curious to discuss it also more from an American perspective, how the diffusion and adoption is there. But we get recent numbers from our statistics office, and that means that they tell us that it's only 10%, roughly 10% of Dutch hospitality businesses structurally using artificial intelligence technology. So there's a huge adoption gap in hospitality. If you just pull up here the comparison with other industries, we really see, like with construction as another laggard, we are really running behind when it comes to implementing and integrating structurally artificial intelligence. Just a couple of examples, and I know I assume that most of you know either the specific one or comparable solutions here. But of course, AI chatbots for guest relations is one key integration or one key solution at the moment. AI-based reputation management, so that you get automatically and optimized responses to reviews on the different rating platforms, etc. What we see also is AI-based call centers, basically, that we have voice agent basically taking over and displacing entire call centers in hotel reservation departments. So there's a lot happening in terms of AI integration. And most of this is related to that shift from AI assistants to AI agents. I quickly touched upon this, and this is basically just a definition slide to really differentiate, okay, where do we come from and where are we going towards to? But really the assistant era, basically where we wait for instructions, where we have reactive AI technologies, very task-focused, conversational, that we have left behind to a certain extent, and we are really going into the agentic world. And I pulled up Onze here, which is coming from Germany. They have a solution for these fully AI-based call centers, but these are really proactive, autonomous solutions, goal-oriented. They are continuously learning and they act independently, so they can write the reservations independently in your PMS, etc., without human in the loop, if you wish to. So that's really the shift that we are seeing, that we are really going into the agentic world. And I probably won't tell you anything new. It's a piece of software that executes tasks for you. And if you look into forecast, we'll probably see that about a third of enterprise software will have those agentic solutions integrated by 2028. We come from less than 1% in 2024. And just another European example here, Apaleo was one of the first PMS providers that said, okay, we're really focusing on this agentic approach. We're launching an, how they call it, agent hub, where they basically have all these solutions curated for their customers. The critical perspective is that everything that I discussed so far, and you have, of course, all your own examples of integrating AI, is that to a large extent, we're focusing on increasing profits by lowering costs rather than by growing revenues via innovation. So the AI solutions that we just talked about, they're basically focused on efficiency gains. So basically doing an existing process faster, more efficient, more cost effective. Yeah. That is the current status. That is where we are right now. So AI is basically just replicating, the AI integrations are basically just replicating what we used to do last year or 2 years ago. There's very little innovation and really change in the industry happening. And that is why we said, okay, how might AI transform the future? So what are then different, so to say, scenarios, how AI could impact hospitality and tourism over the next 5, 10, 15 years. taking into consideration that indeed this baseline is that we are now to a large extent focused on only efficiency gains. And what we did is, as I said, we did a strategic foresight study, and what we basically did, very open conversation with AI experts, not only from hospitality, but also from beyond the traditional hospitality industry boundaries. So we talked with technology experts, we talked with policymakers on a European, on a global level. We talked really with knowledge experts, and we asked them very open, very simple questions. We always started with, if you could ask a clairvoyant, if you could ask someone with a crystal ball, what would be questions that you would be interested in how the future will unfold when it comes to AI in hospitality or in AI in general? And based on these numerous open conversations, we pulled together, say, this strategic outlook paper study, not very scientifically written, scientifically grounded, but not very scientifically written. So I really tried to write it in a language that it's not very theoretical, but really tangible, illustrative. And I put up the QR code here, and I'll give you a couple of seconds because, my marketing, communication, and PR colleagues, they only allow me to do these talks when we also get traction on our own material. So if you would do us a favor to also scan the code, have a look at the report, browse through it, download it, distribute it within your networks. That's really highly appreciated. It's just launched, I think 10 days ago during ITB in Berlin. So you're one of the first where I'll show some preliminary findings. I'm sure that we can share the QR code also afterwards. The key element of this outlook study, which we call the AI power gap, because it's really about the power gap when it comes to hospitality businesses. It's really about the power gap that we are risking as the traditional hospitality businesses, to lose the value creation and value capture power to players that are not traditional hospitality businesses. And what I mean with that is something that I will share with you in a moment. But the key of this study is that we developed, as I said, alternative futures that might sound a bit crazy, but it's a valid academic method to really make sense of uncertain developments. So what you see here is how we call it the cone of plausibility, with a timeline from left to right, and then basically, a spectrum of plausibility with more likely scenarios and more wildcard scenarios. As I said, if we don't do anything, we'll basically just stay on the horizontal line. We'll do business as usual, and there's an AI futures baseline reality check scenario. I will quickly deep dive into those scenarios one by one in a bit, but just to give you an overview here. And then you'll see, different alternative scenarios that could unfold only when there is strategic intervention. So if you as a hospitality leader proactively strategize in a different way, you might be able to work towards one of these alternative scenarios. If you, as a hospitality leader, basically follow just the next recommendation from a tech vendor, or just do what the other businesses in your comp set are doing, the likelihood that you will stay on that AI futures baseline scenario is rather high. So the scenarios B, C, D, and E, they really require bold decisions, leadership decisions. They require change, they require transformation, and they require a lot of proactive steering towards these scenarios. Having said that, I would like to quickly go through these scenarios. So the baseline check is how we call it, assistance everywhere, but no market share gained, right? So that's basically really a scenario where, well, artificial intelligence gets diffused, of course, throughout the hospitality businesses. We already see that. I just pulled up a couple of examples. There are, of course, much more. But there's no extra value. There's no true innovation in the industry. It's just basically business as usual. And if you look at the scenario more in depth, it is really about that there's no differentiation when it comes to tech integration. It's just that hotels adopt AI solutions, AI agents as commoditized requirements. So it's basically just the admission to operate in the industry, to say, okay, you have whatever you can automate and what you can augment with artificial intelligence solutions, you do, because everyone is doing that. This is basically just additive. There's not transformative. So the AI is not transforming your business. It's not changing anything fundamentally. It's just making the existing operations more efficient. That's basically what it is. And hotels become very digital dependent, as I said, digital dependent from tech vendors, from solution providers, etc. That's baseline scenario. As I said, it's all about this focus on increasing profits by lowering costs. And another quote that fits pretty well here is from Professor Frey from Oxford. He said, like, had the 19th century focused solely on better looms, we would enjoy cheap clothes, but there would be no antibiotics, jet engines, rockets, etc. So economic miracles really stem from discovery and not repeating tasks at greater speed. And that baseline scenario is really focusing on doing existing tasks, repeating tasks at greater speed, at greater efficiency through AI integration. An alternative scenario is the platform power shift, how we call it. That requires already change, but it's quite likely to happen, even though we see some signals that point in a different direction. I'll show you in a moment what it means. But that's a scenario where an AI intermediary would take over. So when an AI interface owns the guest. What I mean with that is that an AI interface basically owns and replaces the brand loyalty. That is really the core. That the bookings, the distribution fully go through an AI interface. And we have seen that with OpenAI venturing in this territory by integrating OTAs like Booking, etc. The risk is that all the customer insights, data points, they will not even label with the OTA, but the risk might be that those insights, those data points would shift even outside of the industry to players like OpenAI. And hotels basically become commoditized sleeping utilities, not knowing who's standing in front of them. Okay. So it's a huge risk of losing guest relationship, losing sovereignty when it comes to data points, etc. And there's a full focus on how we call this algorithmic negotiation. So agents communicating to agents to really optimize for price, forcing hotels basically to compete on data, on price, and not on emotions. To make that concrete, I brought a very recent study that was only published 2-3 days ago. But what they did is they had 80,000 trials where AI agents searched for offerings and made decisions to purchase. And they analyzed the response of these agents to ratings, prices, order effects, and nudges, right? And agents, what they found is that across these 80,000 trials, agents really prefer higher rated offerings. So that means if your offering is rated higher, it's more likely that the agent chooses you as a hotel. interestingly, and that's what I meant with really this algorithmic optimization towards price, agents choose the cheaper offering. So if the hotel next door offers a room at a lower rate, the likelihood that the agent chooses or books for the customer that hotel is much higher. And simple persuasive cues, nudges, how we call them, are very well performing. So if you would just label your offering as this hotel room is a bestseller, or if you buy this hotel room, you get one free, doesn't really apply. But if you say book this and get something on top, then agents are really sensitive to that, much more sensitive than humans if you compare that. So it's really going down the spiral of being cheaper, offering more ancillary or add-on services to get chosen by an agentic AI when it comes to distribution. The reality is also, and I just have an article here from Business Insider, and you know that OpenAI is now openly admitting that maybe it's not the right way to distribute directly to ChatGPT. There's this whole discussion whether people really trust that channel to make the final booking decision, or whether they just basically use it for research and well, scanning, and then doing the actual booking through a provider that they really trust and that they are known and that they know. So an OTA like Booking or Brand.com. The third scenario is the custom AI counterforce, how we call it. And that's really a scenario where basically the customers take back the power of the AI interaction. And we call this also the transparency arms race. So where marketing budgets of hospitality businesses basically become invisible. What that means is that all your marketing efforts basically collapse in the sense that that guests would deploy their own agents, verification mechanisms, basically that would really scan for the ultimate truth, in the sense that they would scan whether the claims that you make on your websites, in your marketing material, whether they're actually true. And they would then basically flag anything that does not match reality. Fake reviews, AI generated images of hotel rooms, of your swimming pools, etc. So we'll see that there's a lot of AI solutions now out there. Redison is doing a lot of that. I've seen at the conference. But in that scenario, you would really have, so to say, on the customer side, much more bargaining power, verifying, checking for what is AI generated, what can I trust, what can I recommend to the human booker. And then if we go even more wild, we have identified another scenario, which is the nightmare of modern times. You'll see some connections there. That's really a scenario where AI is deployed in the sense that there's no slack left. There's full algorithmic optimization in hotel operations, and there's no unused time to create unexpected hospitality moments as we used to do in the past. It's full algorithmic surveillance, micro optimization. So it's all about eliminating slack time, as I said. It's basically handling the incoming guests like on a conveyor belt, fully optimized. You have your AI forecast saying, okay, guest A is arriving at this specific time, and based on the guest profile that we know, he or she doesn't like small talk. So it's basically just a very quick check-in and then next, whereas then the subsequent guest really wants to have some extra bit of service. So if we deliver that just in time, that it's really that the entire shift is micro optimized, almost on a minute basis, based on AI based algorithms. So the hospitality soul, as we know it, is totally engineered out. It's all about mechanical perfection. And it's basically, as we call it, an efficiency-driven commodity spiral. So it's all about efficiency, optimization, etc. It sounds as if this is far away, but if we look into examples, and I don't know if you've heard about it, but Burger King just announced that, well, it says end of February this year, that all their employees in a prototype or in a testing environment, they would get AI fed headsets that would basically track employee friendliness. So all the conversations get analyzed, and at the end of your shift, you would get a friendliness score. How often you as an employee say thank you to the customer, how often you ask whether you could upsell to a certain to a different product, etc. So we'll see this algorithmic optimization already happening. So this nightmare of modern times scenario is really some scenario that is not very unlikely to happen if we don't, well, interfere, and if we don't really create interventions to stop these developments. A more positive scenario that we identified would be a worker empowering path. That would be also our last scenario, but that is really about deploying and integrating artificial intelligence, not only with a focus on productivity, but on productivity with dignity, so that AI lifts working conditions and not only the operational outputs. So to a large extent, or to a certain extent, we already have examples of these or instances of these scenarios in place where we have AI as we call it, liberating co-pilot, where AI handles the boring, repetitive accountant work, and humans really do the, as called in the literature, connective labor, so really connecting with other humans. It's not that all the efficiency gains go into the pocket of the shareholder, but really go into reinvesting, into dignity in hospitality work. So it's really about reinvesting the time that gets saved into high value human work. So not into higher throughput, but really into this connected and connective labor. Then that scenario, the human touch, the human to human interaction becomes the ultimate luxury. So the time that a human host can meaningfully spend with a human guest, that is really the competitive advantage of hotels, of accommodation providers. And we see that also basically in terms of demand from other industries, and pulled up an article from the Financial Times here from last week, where it's really also other industries asking for the skills that we usually tend to cherish and develop for in the hospitality industry. So these human skills, emotional intelligence, empathy, those skills, they are also really demanded and asked for, not only by traditional hospitality businesses, but also by other businesses coming from other industries, saying, okay, yes, we need a certain level of how they call it, technical insights, technical capabilities, but we really need to excel and to build competitive advantage in our respective industries. We need the skills that were traditionally developed in the hospitality industry. To wrap things up and to put things into perspective, what we talked about is that artificial intelligence as a technology existed for almost 70 years now. Why we have this hype, why we have this special interest group, is because it is disruptive. It is really diffusing across societies and across consumers and businesses. We quickly touched upon current AI transformations, the shift towards AI agents, this whole discussion around human AI collaboration. And then I'll give you just a quick glimpse into what happens when hospitality leaders don't change, don't make bold decisions, and basically stay with the baseline. What happens to our industry in terms of AI, but what also alternative scenarios could unfold if we have businesses with leaders that take bold decisions, that take transformative decisions, to basically deviate from the baseline and work towards alternative scenarios showing how AI could also unfold in our industry. If you have any questions, reflections, I would be very happy to further discuss with you. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, send me an email. More than happy to also deep dive into more of these scenarios. We'll also have, say, strategic guidelines questions to facilitate boardroom discussions on, do we want to go in this direction or do we want to go in that direction? So we have a full toolkit on basically how to work with these scenarios to make sense of everything, for all the AI noise that is surrounding us. So please feel free to connect and continue the conversation. Thanks a lot.